Meantime, another potential headwind for big tech. Germany considering a 10% digital services tax for large online platforms. Meta and Google among the names that could be most heavily impacted. For more, let's bring in Fast Money friend and Deepwater Asset Management managing partner, Gene Munster. Gene, always good to see you.
Hello.
So how big of an impact is this? As I understand it, other countries already have a digital services tax, and Germany is sort of joining in on the party at this point.
Correct, Melissa. It's about 2 to 5% for a dozen or so countries. So Germany has not had one. So they're a little bit late to the game. But the news here is that the size of it is a step function bigger. It's a 10% digital tax. It's also on revenue. And that's important because typically you pay taxes on earnings, but in this case, it is an impact to revenue. So think of this effectively as the impact. If it was like a tax rate, it would be about double that number. We're talking about like a 20% number. And so that's one piece that kind of sticks out. A second is this rift, this continued friction between U.S. tech and Europe. And we saw it with GDRP, the Digital Management Act, and now we're seeing it with this digital service tax. And I think what is ultimately at play here is kind of the sense that some of these countries feel like an injustice. And in the case of many of the countries, the Europeans especially, they don't get the benefit of a lot of the taxes because most of those funnel through Ireland. As you know, it's just an awesome tax shelter for big tech, and they're typically paying like a 12% tax rate. And so the news here is that just the size of what Germany is talking about, and it kind of has some rhymes like what's going on with tariffs too, is these big kind of step function numbers. And it makes me wonder, is this just kind of all part of a trade negotiation?
Hey, Gene, it's Karen. Yeah, that was sort of my question, which is, was that sort of a, Liberation Day kind of, all right, throw it out there, 10% of revenue, but really we'd settle for
5
or a percent of earnings. What would be a number that would be easily absorbable for a Meta and Amazon, or Google rather?
So keep in mind, they're paying it today in many countries, kind of that 2 to 5%. And so I think that a number, the 2s go up to 5s and the 5 stays at 5s, I think probably is something that investors largely would look past. The reason why the stocks didn't do as much today, didn't really react to the news, is because I mentioned those other shots that EU has taken at big tech, and they have made changes to the business. I mean, these taxes have gone up for them. They have made changes to the business. GDRP impacts how Google can sell ads, how Facebook can track, but they just keep finding ways to continue to grow the business. And I think that to answer your question, how much would be absorbed from an investor perspective, I think they could probably take it up to 5%. And my guess is it is going to go up. I think that there's enough meat here and precedence that's already in place that you're probably going to see some adjustment higher. But my sense is investors will largely look the other way.
Gene, when you look at the percent of revenue that comes from Germany for an Alphabet, it's under 3%. And for a Meta, it's just right at 3%. Is a lot of this us just digging through? And I get it. The numbers, the absolute numbers are big. Those numbers are $10 billion. But when we really look at it, this doesn't change your thesis on these companies, right?
It doesn't change the thesis. There is a piece to this. You're right on those percentage of revenue. There is a piece that the kind of governing body around these types of taxes isn't just a European, it doesn't just have European influence, it's global. And so there is this risk that effectively they ratchet it up for just across the board. And if you want to take it to the most extreme level, you look at these 3 companies, 2/3 of their revenue comes from outside of the US, and you could build a case where if it goes from 2 to a 5%, you get a 3% revenue hit, if all that makes sense. And so I agree, it doesn't change the fundamental thesis of any of these companies, but that's why this is worth attention, because it does have an effect of potentially impacting many companies beyond Germany and Europe.